Happy Sunday morning to everybody for the next few seconds anyway. Normally this would be the time when the clock on the wall would be making its bong 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 noise, but had to replace the battery in it. And the chief around here decided to set it a little bit ahead. So no bong bong anymore. Now I just wait on the clock here on the computer to hit 12 o'clock and go, morning, y'all. Well, good afternoon now. It's a few seconds after 12 o'clock here on the west coast of the U.S. A happy Sunday to you. Thank you for joining me, spending part of your Sunday with me. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully my audio is okay this time. Oh, boy. Last week, YouTube was having a hairy knicker fit. It scheduled 2 live streams when I scheduled 1 live stream. So it decided to broadcast to 2 different places, and folks at the other broadcast location were trying to make comments, and I couldn't see them. I wasn't acknowledging anybody because I didn't have that chat up. I didn't even know it was doing it. Then, from what I gather, YouTube has changed the way it sends out notifications. So folks who were relying on email notifications aren't getting them anymore. So I don't know anything about Mac, but I know on PC you can set your PC to get notifications. And I also know on a mobile device you have to set up your mobile device to get notifications. If you can subscribe to the channel and click the bell and set it for all notifications, but if you have your phone or tablet set to ignore those notifications, you still won't get anything. So if you're watching on a mobile device, you need to tell your mobile to allow the notification to go through. So, and that, I'm not sure how to do that because every phone is a little bit different. So, here's hoping everybody's all on the same page this week, and that, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Richard, for letting me know that my audio is sounding okay. One of these days, this is only number 53. Next week will be 1 year of doing these live Q&As. You'd think I'd have it down by now, but no, just what it's like to be me. So let's go down the list, do a little roll call here, and see who's joining us today. Ice Cream 62 checking in from Italy. Hope everybody there is doing well. Kurt Briegel from Wisconsin. Jeff Rozak down there in Florida. Steve Nealon from Harneal Media still with us and still kicking buttocks, I see. You'll see down in the description right at the top of this video is a link to a GoFundMe to help out Steve and his lovely wife Pam with some medical expenses after Steve's recent open heart surgery adventure. So if you can click on that GoFundMe link, and I want to say thank you to everybody who has donated. And if you have already donated, or if you can't donate, that's all as well. But please share that GoFundMe so we can get it in front of as many people as possible. I would appreciate that. It's real easy to do. Just click on the share button and choose your social media that you want to share it on, and it'll do the rest. Thank you from me, and I'm sure from Steve as well. Let's see. Ayal Peleg checking in from Israel. How are you doing? Jerry Corman. Mr. Brian Webb from North Carolina. Steve Late over in the UK. Yes, sir. All is doing well here. Let's see. I think I already said hello to Brian Webb, but if not, hello. ECabinets Tips and Tricks joining us today. How goes it? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything is going well. Dave Kraus checking in. Kevin Ells joining us from South Africa. Wow. Let's see. Richard Poulin wants to know, is it still hot over here? It is cooling down. We're in the mid to low 90s Fahrenheit. I'm not really sure what that is Celsius. I can look it up. But it hasn't been nearly as hot as it has been, thankfully. Jim Hester checking in from Kentucky. Francisco Paz from Rio de Janeiro. Let's see who else we have here. Boy, one click and it just jumped all over the place. Dave Matthews, Troy F., Alan Taylor Shearer, John Sautier, Greg, the Snow Crusher from up in Manitoba. Let's see who else we have here. Wade Nash, Jeff in Connecticut. Oh boy, 90 degrees again? Yeah, it's about right. Dennis Mills, Richie Mag 22. Jack Pater sitting on the side. Sometimes that's the best place to be. You know, inconspicuous is good. James Main. Warren B. Another one from South Africa. Wow, howdy in Cape Town. Monty Jackson checking in from Indiana. Thomas Grimm. Beer late than never. Paging Dr. Freud. Hello. Okay. Let's see. William Starkey. Keith Hurley. My partner in crime, Eloy Escajedo. When you over at Rockin Woodworks. If you look down there in the description, you will see something called Trampled Underfoot. And you're wondering, what the skippy is that? That is me and my partner Eloy Escajedo there from Rockin Woodworks. We do a weekly podcast. And that podcast goes out on your favorite podcast platform. We talk about life, the universe, everything, pop culture, music, movies, history, ancestry, you name it, we talk about it. Whether we know what we're talking about or not, we have a good time. We record those episodes live on YouTube on our Trampled Underfoot Podcast YouTube channel every Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We just have a good old time at it. It's I hesitate to say it's a show about nothing. We just talk about everything, you know. Folks ask us what's the show about. We say it's about an hour. So come join us, hoot and holler in the live chat. We have a good time. But don't expect, instruction or meaningful content. Well, there's some meaning to it. Oh, well, anyway, I digress. Let's see. We have Michael Keymont just outside of Boston. Keith Hurley from Georgia. And let's see, eCabinet Tips and Tricks. Congrats on hitting 800 subs. Way to go, getting close to that magic 1,000. The Midnight Joker checking in from the UK. Fellow Cigar Box Guitar Builder, how you doing? Jim Pell over there in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I think I'm finally caught up with the addition of David Hudson from Virginia. Welcome aboard, all y'all. That took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take, but I do so like to throw color commentary in on occasion, so that's my fault. Let's see. This morning update, it's part 2, update number 1 on the shop shed build went out, and I've had a few questions about it, so I'll go ahead and get to those first. Right off the bat, somebody in the comments section, and I generally don't mention names when I'm talking about the comment section, mainly because I don't remember who made the comment, but there are other reasons as well. They asked, why no windows in the shed? Well, two reasons, two main reasons. Number one is I don't exactly know where I'm going to be putting everything. So I don't want a window in the way. And because I know my luck, I will put a window somewhere where I need to recess a panel or run electrical or something like that. So I can add windows myself later on once I've got everything placed where I want it. And that brings up the second point, which is I can add a window for a lower price than what the shed company wants to install one. And I can put the type of window I want where I want it. So windows may be coming after the fact, but for right now, I'd like a clean slate, just blank walls so that I can arrange everything where I want to put them without having to concern myself with where the windows are. And I hope that answers that question. Let's see here. We had a couple of other question. Okay, Ayal Peleg wants to know. He says you mentioned a dead man setup. What a dead man is when it comes to, let me bring up a photo here. Find a photo, open it up, and yeah, I guess that would be a good photo there. Okay, let's go over here. And no, come on. Come over here and do this. I think I'm now sharing. Am I sharing? Yes, I should be sharing now. Okay. When it comes to building a perimeter like this, when I start adding gravel and start compacting it in, the tendency is going to be for, on these, especially on these long stretches here, for the weight and pressure to start trying to bow these edge boards here outwards. A dead man is simply a brace that's attached here that runs across and attaches here. That's its sole function is to keep these edges from bowing outwards with the weight of everything that I'm putting on the pad. So they call that's just an old slang term from years ago. They call that a dead man. So, I hope that answers that question. Basically, what I've got to do is I've got to run some cross pieces across from this side to this side, and then again from this side to this side up here to keep all of these things in place. Then I'll put road fabric over the top of that, then put my gravel on top of that. So I hope that answered that question. So let's see, get back over to y'all and make sure that I was actually sharing. I was sharing. Okay, everything's great. Oh, boy. So I hope that answered that question there, Ayal. Go down the list here and see. Brian Webb says, thank you for sharing your knowledge. I've not yet purchased a CNC, but I'm learning a lot for when I do. Brian, I got to tell you, you cannot start learning the software too early. And there are several different software packages. I know I use Vectric, but Fusion 360 is also a very good software package. So if you haven't got the machine yet, if it doesn't come with the CAD/CAM software, I would download all the free trials I could get my hands on and get into the video tutorials and just see which one you prefer. You will quickly discover which one you like best and then focus on that one. So, but you really can't start learning the CAD/CAM software too early. I find that the hardest part of this entire process is getting an idea out of my head and into the computer. So, the faster you can learn to do that, the better off you are. So, let's see. I believe that's caught up. Okay, Wade Nash says he's looking for a good site for speed, feed, and chip load information. Okay, when it comes to chip load, that is up to the manufacturer of the bit. They will give you a recommended chip load on the bit. 99 times out of 100. Now, it's not always the case, but sites like suppliers like Amana, Whiteside, Onsrud, they will generally be there will generally be a chart somewhere on the website showing you what their recommended chip load is. Now, there is, I believe it's Vortex Tool has a feed and speed calculator where you enter the chip load, then you enter your bit, your feed rate, or your RPM, and it will help you calculate. You'll need the chip load and the feed rate, or the chip load and the RPM, or you'll need the feed rate and RPM. It's a three-part equation, and it will calculate the one you don't have. So basically is what I'm trying to get to. But keep in mind that even if you have all that information and have that perfectly calculated and set up in your software, use that as a starting point only, because not every machine is capable of the RPMs or the feed rates that these calculators will give you. Most Home Hobby CNC routers just will not move fast enough for some of these feed rates. You'll either have to speed up an RPM to slow down the feed rate, or just totally ignore the calculator altogether, which, to be honest, is what I do. I start conservative. I generally start with a 1/4 inch end mill. I will start at 50 inches per minute and start cutting. I run a pass depth of anywhere between a 1/16 of an inch and 100 thousandths, so not quite an 1/8 of an inch. And I'll start it at 50 inches per minute, and then I'll adjust my feed rate on the fly as I see how it's cutting, because every piece of material is different. Wood is different from foam, which is different from acrylic, which is different from aluminum. And even in the woods, pine is different from oak, which is different from maple, which is different from walnut. So there is no magic number. I just, you want to make chips, not dust, but you don't want the router or bit to struggle. So I don't even pay attention to chip load. I don't even pay attention to the calculators. I start at 50 inches per minute, and I adjust my feed rate from there. I may end up cutting at 50. I may end up cutting at 180. It just depends on how the wood is responding to the bit. So I know that's not much help, but those calculators are made for industrial machines. I mean, you can run some of those chip load calculations and find that you need to be cutting at 400 inches per minute. Most Home Hobby CNCs just simply won't do that. So it's a balancing act is what I'm getting at. So, okay. Let's see. I hope that answers your question there, Wade. William Starkey wants to know the best way to increase the width of a font. Sometimes there really is no best. You can do so by either right there in the draw text window, you can try clicking on bold, and that'll make it slightly wider. And you can, if you're just wanting to stretch the width and not the height, you can go into move and transform mode and adjust your width on the entire bit of text. Now, if you're just trying to adjust one character, convert to curves, and adjust that one character. I hope that's what you mean. So, if that's not what you're talking about, let me know, please. Okay, Jerry Corman. Question on profile cutout drilling problems. I'm using VCarve desktop. No matter how I set the depth, cutout, or drill, my machine will cut or drill way past the set depth. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Jerry, you may not be doing anything wrong. I would ask you, number one, have you calibrated your machine? If you haven't, you might want to check that. And what I mean by that is, check the calibration so that when you tell your Z to move down 1 inch, it's actually moving 1 inch and not 1 1/4 inches. Check the calibration. Make sure you don't have any offsets in there when you set your X, Y, and Z 0. Make sure that 0 is 0. And from there, see, it shouldn't be losing steps on its way to... And just measure your material and make absolutely certain that it's plunging to the correct depth. So calibration. All right, let me stop, back up, and regroup here. Always check the mechanical first. Make sure your belts are tight if you have belts. Make sure your couplers are tight if you have couplers. If it's doing it all the time, it's probably a software issue. If it's intermittent, it's probably a mechanical issue. Software settings don't change themselves. If you've made no other changes, then you're fine. Check the calibration. Measure your material to make sure it's correct, and make sure there are no offsets in your Z setup, your X, Y, and Z setup. And also make sure that your bit is up fully in the shank and it is tight. I do not like spindle locks. I use 2 wrenches. Make sure that that collet is tight and your bit's not slipping. Yeah, Michael Keymont, 100% I agree with you. It could be a slipping bit. If it's an upcut bit, they tend to want to pull the bit upwards. If it's a downcut bit, they tend to want to pull the bits down. Don't ask me why. You would think it would be opposite, but that's not been my experience. So, okay, let's see. Richard Poulin. I don't know about your place, but you said that you'll be using clean gravel. And clean gravel does not compact. Only fine material gets compacted, like 0 to 3/4 gravel. I'm going for 3/4 and smaller. It does have its fine, but it's washed. So to get rid of most of the dust, it is... Okay. My local supplier calls washed. 50% of the gravel has been washed to remove dust and fines. It's a road-based gravel. And they use a 50% washed because for something like drainage systems, you don't want a lot of those fines in there because they will clog up drainage tile. But when it comes to road base or gravel pads like this, you do want them so that it does compact. Now, this is also crushed rock, and it will compact real well. Got it in my driveway. It will be as hard as concrete, I'm telling you. But yes, I'm using 3/4 and smaller crushed stone. So, let's see. Michael Keymont giving Wade some good advice here. G-Wizard CNC cookbooks. Jeff over at Woody One wants to know, have you ever worked with Chorion? Not on a CNC, but I have just with regular woodworking tools. It's very similar to working with a hardwood. It's very similar. You will need dust collection. Big time. Because we Chorion is a brand name for a solid surface material, but much like plexiglass or perspex, we have started calling any solid surface material Chorion. They're not all equal. Chorion is going to carve a little differently from something like candlestone or avenite because they have a different formula. A lot of these are just polyester resins with fillers in them to give them a matte finish and an opaque look. Chorion works very, very well with standard woodworking tools. It's it's one of those things you're going to have to experiment with because the material, the solid surface material is made from is going to be the deciding factor in that. I would start off conservative. I start slow and then build it up. Now, someone asked a minute ago what I meant by adjusting speeds on the fly. Let me bring up, I don't have this loaded already, and I should. Let me bring up Mach 3, and I will show you what I mean by that. And as soon as I can bring it up, okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and get this. Okay, I'm showing Mach 3 here. I've got reset. There we go. When I have G-code running in Mach 3, my feed rate is set, and I'm looking at my feed rate right here. Looking at these two buttons right here, I can override my feed rate up to 300%. I can drag up a slider here. Now, the feed rate set by default was 6 inches per minute. I don't have any G-code loaded to reset that, but you can see I can increase my feed rate here on the fly as it's running. And if I need to reset it back to what it was, my feed rate to 100% or 6 inches per minute, I can just hit that reset button. But while the machine is running, I can start bumping up my feed rate, and it increases 10% every time I click this arrow button here until I get up to 300%, and that's the max it'll let me go. And that's it. Okay, it won't go any further, see? And then I can just reset it back to what the standard feed rate was just by hitting that reset button. And what I tend to do is I will go ahead and start bumping up that feed rate and listening to the bit cutting through the material. And if it starts to sound like it's struggling a little bit, or if I start to hear chatter, I will back it off 10%, listen, and if I need to, back it off another 10%, and then just let it cut. And you'll see I have an LED flashing here that's telling me that my feed rate has been overridden. So when I load my next G-code, after this cut is finished, I'll reset, load that G-code so that that feed rate is not overridden from the beginning. So that's how I adjust my feed rate on the fly in Mach 3. So let's see. I've been using Mach 3 since the very beginning because that's what, Mach 4 wasn't out yet. So Mach 3 was, that was the standard at the time. Now there are other programs, UC CNC, Win CNC, Linux CNC, and what have you. But I saw so many people were using Mach 3, and it was recommended to me, that I figured, I really had nothing to lose. So I went ahead and I got the Mach 3 license, been using it ever since, and I've had absolutely zero problems with it. It's not for everybody. But I saw no need to update when Mach 4 came out because it still works, So that's how I increase on the fly in Mach 3. Now, WinCNC or Linux CNC or UC CNC may have another way of increasing or decreasing the feed rate. And if you have a proprietary controller like, let's see, Iconic or Axiom or Legacy, you might check with the manufacturer. But one of the generic controllers, you can generally adjust the feed rate up or down on the fly like that. So let's see. Michael Keymont, Mazzo can only reduce the feed rate. You know what, Michael? Send Jat a email. That's where he gets his ideas for updates for the software. Send him an email. Tell him you'd like to be able to increase the feed rate. That's where these updates come from. And Jat's a good guy. He'll listen. He wants to know that kind of stuff. So let's see. Would plywood, Scotia 3D wants to know, would plywood buckle less than dressed pine if using stamp ink? Okay, I don't understand what you mean by buckle. But if you're talking about the ink soaking into the wood fibers, all woods they're going to absorb. When you make a cut, you're basically creating end grain and you're opening up those wood fibers. All woods are going to absorb that ink and it's going to bleed or blend in. But if you make the carve and then seal that, I use either sanding sealer, a shellac-based sanding sealer, or I use lacquer, just depending upon what my top coat is going to be. And I'll V-carve and then shoot it with that clear coat to seal those wood fibers. Then I go back and paint. If that's what you mean, that's what I do. If you're getting buckling or if you're getting delamination or if the wood or the finish or the paint is doing something else, let me know. Let's see. Linux, okay, Dave Matthews said Linux CNC user interface has a slider on the lower left. Default is max of 120% boost, but you can change that in the INI file. Okay, all right, so Linux CNC, you can adjust that. All right. Michael Johnston says, I'm going to be using acrylic for the first time this week. Is there anything I should be careful of? Yes, be very careful of your RPMs and your feed rate. Because if you build up heat in that acrylic, it will start to melt and weld itself to the bit and back to the edge of the cut. You can get O-flute bits for acrylic, and I would recommend one. It's a single flute bit, and what the O stands for in O-flute is open. It's a single open flute that evacuates those chips out of there fast to keep them out of there so the heat doesn't build up and they melt. You'll have to slow down your RPMs. I don't know if you have a spindle or if you're using a router, but you'll have to slow down your RPMs to 10,000, maybe less, and then run a faster feed rate to get those chips out of there as soon as you can. Because you do not want I've done it. You do not want them to melt onto that bit because basically you've just scrapped a bit. You're not getting it off of there. Forget it. Okay, let's see. Hannibal says, this may be a stupid question, but how do you get alignment grid lines in VCarve desktop? It is not a stupid question. I will show you right now. Let me switch over here to Aspire, And it's the same as VCarve Desktop or VCarve Pro. Now I got to make sure I get it right. Let's see. We come up here to, is it View? No, it is not View. It's not Toolpath. It's Edit, Snap Options. Right here under the Edit menu, go to Snap Options. And what you're looking for is this right here, Snap to Grid. And you'll see all the little dots of the grid have just suddenly magically appeared. And this is where you set the grid spacing. If you're working in millimeters, you'd set how far apart you want these grid dots to be. I work in imperial, so my grid spacing is 1/4 inch. Also know that you will have to do this. Well, you won't have to do this. Let me rephrase that. If I'll go ahead and click OK, I have my grid up here and showing. If I save a file with this grid up here displayed, the next time I open that file, the grid will be displayed. If you want to turn it off, go back to Snap Options, uncheck Snap to Grid, click OK. But even like this, with the grid turned off, if I load a file that was created with the grid turned on, the grid will come back because that's how that file was saved. So again, that's Edit, Snap Options, Snap to Grid. So hope that helps. Okay, I like them like that. Those are easy questions that I don't even have to think about. Okay, let's see. Jeff at Woody One says, thanks, we'll let you know how it goes. I got 10 by 10 samples from Chorion to learn. Okay, if it is Chorion, it's very, very similar to hardwood. I would liken it to something like maple. But again, if you can, practice on some scrap. So, but I've never worked with it on the CNC myself. I have routed it. I worked in a solid surface countertop shop for too many years. I have routed it, and it's very similar to hardwood. I just be careful is all, because it is just different enough, but it will give you a good finish. Okay, Michael Johnston, thank you. It's a spindle, so slow RPM, fast feed, open single flute bit. Yes, sir. That's it. Let's see. Thomas Grimm says, don't forget the alignment lines you pull from the rulers. Oh, you're talking about the guides. Yes. Let me bring that back up, and we'll go back over here to Aspire. I believe you're talking about guidelines like so and so. So you have a horizontal guide and a vertical guide. Just drag them over. I have a video on this on my channel. To turn those off, just go up here to this top corner and click. That's a button. It did not delete those guides. It just turned them off. To delete the guides, you'll come up here to View, Guidelines, Delete All Guides. And there you go. Now it doesn't matter what this is. Click on this. There are no guides. The guides are deleted. So I did a video on this topic on my channel, and I'll link that down in the description of this video. So thank you for that there, Thomas. You're absolutely right. Okay, Michael Keymont, my new DIY machine's first carve is underway. I'm 3 hours in at 300-inch PM, 3D carving, joy. Good luck to you, my friend. Good luck to you. It is 12:39 Pacific. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to say thank you to everybody. Richard Poulin says, so you use the same bit for Chorion as wood, so not a single flute like acrylic. I have not heard anybody recommend a single flute for Chorion. I know that when I used handheld routers in it, I used standard roundover bits, chamfer bits, and downcut spiral straight mortising bits and upcut spiral straight mortising bits. I have never heard anybody recommend a single flute bit. I don't imagine it would hurt, but I've never heard. I'm gonna have to get some Chorion and experiment, and that's all there is to it. See now, Richard, see what you've done. Now I got another project to add to the list. So I will put that guides video, a link to that video down in the description of this video. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Want to say thank you to everybody. I truly appreciate you spending part of your Sunday with me. I have no idea what next week is going to be. As soon as I get done here, I'm going to go outside and I got to mount a junction box. I've got breakers to put in to the main meter panel out here. I got my electrical panel behind me. I've got conduit to run, and I got a trencher to go. Oh, that was another question I got. I said I needed to mount an LB at the back end of the house. This is an LB. It is a 90-degree turn that has a panel on the back, so you have two places to pull heavy cable through. So that's an LB. So, alrighty, I will get on out of here now. And y'all have a great Sunday. I appreciate the folks who have hit me up and donated using the links down in the description. Thank you very much. You know who you are. So from me to you for right now, let me say happy Sunday, and y'all take care.